Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Enigma Show. I'm Eddie Enigma. Subscribe, hit the notification bell so you're notified every time I upload a new video. Hello, everybody. Enigma here again, and the country has kind of turned upside down. Uh, the riots have subsided, but the protests still carry on. And around the country, it seems like monumental statues of the Confederate States of America are being taken down in major cities across the nation. And I want to talk about one in particular, the leader of the Confederate South, Jefferson Davis. Now, when you talk about Jefferson Davis and the Confederate flag, the Dixie flag, the flag with the big X, it's actually a battle flag if you go and look it up. It's a easy Google search. Jefferson Davis was a traitor to the United States in actuality. And a lot of people will deny this fact, but I'm going to share with you some information that some outsiders might not know, some people who are not from the United States and don't understand real American history, because the history that's taught in public schools is a watered down version of what actually happened, and they leave a lot of facts out. Jefferson Davis wanted a nation rooted in owning slaves. Now, when you talk to a lot of people who are waving this flag, they'll say, no, it's not racist. It's about our quote unquote heritage. Have you ever heard of a man called Alexander H. Stevens? And when you talk to these Southern people, ask them who Alexander H. Stevens was. And I guarantee you most of them don't know. He was the vice president of the Confederacy. This Alexander H. Stevens wrote the famous Cornerstone Address, laying out the ideology of the Confederate South. And we're going to read and find out exactly just what that was. Let me go ahead and pull this up on the computer here. All right. I'm going to read the germane part of the Cornerstone Address. And let me get into my Southern voice here. Our new government is founded upon exactly the opposite idea. Its foundations are laid, its cornerstone rests upon the great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man, that slavery, subordination to the superior race is his natural and normal condition. This, our new government, is the first in the history of the world based upon its great physical, philosophical, and moral truth. This truth has been slow in its process of its development, like all other truths in the various departments of science. It has been so even amongst us. Many who hear me perhaps can recollect well that this truth was not generally admitted even within their day. The heirs of the past generation still clung to many as late as 20 years ago. Those at the North who still cling to these errors with the zeal above knowledge we justly denominate fanatics. All fanaticism springs from an aberration of the mind, from a defect in reasoning. It is a species of insanity. One of the most striking characteristics of insanity in many instances is forming correct conclusions from fancied or erroneous premises. So with the anti-slavery fanatics, their conclusions are right if their premises were. They assume that the Negro is equal and hence conclude that he is entitled to equal privileges and rights with the white man. If their premises were correct, their conclusions would be logical and just, but their premises being wrong, their whole argument fails. To recollect, once having heard a gentleman from one of the northern states of great power and ability announced in the House of Representatives with imposing effect that we of the South would be compelled ultimately to yield upon this subject of slavery, that it was as impossible to war successfully against a principle in politics as it was in physics or mechanics, that the principle would ultimately prevail, that we, in maintaining slavery as exists with us, were warring against a principle founded in nature, the principle of equality of men. The reply I made to him was that upon his own grounds, we should ultimately succeed, and that he and his associates in this crusade against our institutions would ultimately fail. The truth announced that it was as impossible to war successfully against a principle in politics as it was in physics and mechanics, I admit it, but told him that it was he and those acting with him who were warring against a principle. They were attempting to make things equal, which the Creator had made unequal. So, people, in a nutshell, for those who don't really understand the old English, they said that slavery was the natural state of black people and that it was God's will to keep them as slaves. It was God's will that black people be slaves, and that the white man was superior to the black man. Not only the black man, I'm gonna let you guys in on something else. They felt that way about anybody who was not white. Sorry to these other groups who think they got a pass, and no, they felt that way about anyone who wasn't white. So this is what the Confederacy was all about. This is what the battle flag, the Confederate flag, represents. So whenever somebody brings this up to you and talks about this, you show them and read them this cornerstone address, and let's see what they say. Let's see how to respond to this. Well, if you just read in the cornerstone address, it explains explicitly the keen mind of the South, as they so put it. Jefferson Davis was a traitor. He was a traitor to the United States, and the United States is the only country that did not prosecute its traitors. Jefferson Davis and all of those Confederate soldiers were allowed to live normal lives. That was the agreement between Lincoln and Jefferson Davis, that none of the soldiers who participated in the Civil War against the North would be prosecuted and jailed. They were given back their land, and they were compensated for the slaves that they lost. Yes, and also those of us who hold Lincoln in high regard, he made the slaves stay on a plantation to complete the next year's harvest. So they weren't freed immediately. The Emancipation Proclamation did not free a single person. Just so you know this, it didn't free anyone. It changed the way slavery was defined. Instead of antebellum slavery, if they went to prison, they could use them as slave labor. And this also brings up to another point. This ushered in the vagrancy laws, the loitering laws. Who do you think they made those for? They made those for the ex-slaves. This is a way to put them back on the plantation. There's plenty of documentation about this, but that's another video for another time. I just want to let you know that little fact. Now, imagine if Germany did the same thing the United States did to the former SS and Nazis. Just imagine Germany putting statues up of Hitler and his generals in city capitals and in front of court buildings and federal buildings. And imagine them commemorating Hitler and saying this is part of our heritage, and them walking around with Nazi flags and reenacting a battle which they lost over and over and over, year after year. This is something I don't understand about the people in the South who view this treachery as heritage. Why reenact a battle in a war that you lost year in and year out? What's the point of that? To keep reminding yourself that Jefferson Davis was a loser, that the Confederate South were losers. We don't have to destroy the statues. I think they should be taken down, in my opinion. I don't have an issue with that, but put them in a museum. So everybody who finds this to be proud heritage can go to this museum. They can see these statues and then have to worry about anybody taking them down or dismembering them or defacing them. Go put them in front of our court buildings, put them in the squares of state capitals. Because I believe some of the people in the United States thought that this was evil, why would you want to be reminded of this? Why would you want to be reminded of the dark chapter in the United States? Well, you guys, those are my thoughts on this issue. Let me know what you think. Like, share, and subscribe. Once again, this is Enigma. You have been enigmified, and I will see you in the next one. Peace. Jefferson Davis, General Robert E. Lee, these people were traitors.